Hello, class. My name is Mark. Most of you guys know me. Uh, that we met in a chat room. Some of them I've replied to. Some of your fine writings. So hello and goodbye to all of you, because this will be the last time you'll be hearing from me, and I hope that I'll catch up with you in some other part, in some other class. I'm going to start my presentation. The reason I have a presentation, because I think that just to watch a face without some extra background, I think it would be boring. So I went ahead and got creative and kind of did a background with the picture. Hope that the time that we're together, it will be informal for you. So I'm going to start with answering those questions. The question number one was, what book did you pick, and what I chose, and and what specifically drew you to this selection. So I was not familiar with Morgan Jerkins. Miss Jerkins' book. It's the first time that I'm reading her writing. She's tons of other stuff that you can read, but this is the first time. But what really drew me the book, that I thought that I would find representation, intersectionality, social commentary, a personal narrative, and empowerment in this book. Due to my previous experience with similar background writers or authors. So let's start from the top. Representation in this book, it represents a real and relatable image of a black woman, or maybe for all the other black and the brown man and woman. And so, for example, if you read this book, it's a good read. I recommend it. Chapter 1, the example that she brings up when she goes to try out for cheerleading as a black woman, and she has her friends and they're mixed, and then the title is, and I quote, "Monkeys like you," end quote. It had represented the way that she struggled, and it starts from chapter 1. Intersectionality, it's a complex subject, but she has done an amazing job of breaking it down. Social commentaries, of course. Let me go back to intersectionality. There's an example that she brings in on page 53, specifically when she goes to Princeton. When she goes to Princeton, she sees that other black women has their hair just natural, beautifully, just walking around, and she doesn't have to, just like I was explaining in chapter 1, that she has to comb a certain way to fit that cheerleading uniform. Everyone is just in Princeton wearing it how naturally it is. She doesn't have to deal with, as she says, at home cold and Vaseline and whatnot. Social commentary, she focuses on, for example, on feminism, racism, other social and cultural problems faced by black women today. For example, chapter 7, when she goes to Russia, and then even the title of the chapter is human, not black. So that's really it's important, and I'm gonna get back to it too, because a lot of times I choose certain things, but I've talked about it twice, because once I initially talk about it on a first question, then I go to question number 2 and 3, and it's come back. So hopefully it'll be interesting for you guys. The social commentary, I'm going back to see social commentary, where chapter 7, when she goes to Russia, she goes to Nitsky Institute in St. Petersburg, and she writes it amazingly, how she found herself, how she connected socially, etc. Personal narratives are amazing. Specifically, she uses her own experience at page 68 about a personal long distance relationship that she has with an individual, and then she beautifully writes it, where she questions herself that, should I have this relationship or not? And then lastly, empowerment. Empowerment. Sorry, I have two E's in there. And that's why I ask. Forgive me, and I'm correcting it as I go, so that way it is authentic. It's not fixed, and it's not staged. So you can see it just it's happening live. So empowerment, I think that she did an amazing job giving people power, and the reason I'm bringing that up, and it's so important for all of us as students of this class to understand that if we learning about leisure, that empowering ourselves, understanding that we have to empower others as well. And she has done a really, really good job. I've read a couple other books parallel to this one, when Crack Was King, by Donovan Ramsey, and also Matthew Desmond book of Evicted. All these three books are extremely empowering, specifically the one by Miss Jerkins. The reason I brought the other two books, because they have almost similar stories of struggle of black and brown communities in the United States of America. Specifically, Mr. Donovan went through, literally after writing the book, he went through treatment of PTSD, because he developed PTSD after writing all those stories. So empowering other people is like charging other people's batteries. And so once you're charging other people's batteries, you do run out of your own batteries. I'm sure a professor can relate to that. So going to question number two. Question number two, talk about one idea that expressed. Again, I'm going to go back to her visit in Russia. Chapter 7, of course. Chapter 7, why I'm bringing Russia, because I'm from Afghanistan, and Russians actually invaded my country for almost 10 years. So the apparatus was there for me to connect with her. And like I said, this idea really hits home for me. Like many others that are familiar with the same area, it's a really complicated and rich stories of common, Russian writing. So what I'm trying to say is, she makes it, Jerkins makes it clear that her interest in Russian writing is a way for her to figure out who she is as a black woman. But my interest in this idea goes beyond racial boundaries. Russian writing is incredibly good, exploring deep philosophical questions. Showing complicated human relationships and feelings. I don't know if you guys read any books. I read this one awesome book, The Gulag of Archipelago, by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And he's an amazing writer. The book is dark. It's not for everyone. That book's my favorite one. It shows all this complexity and depth. So the pieces of writing, which is about horrible condition of Soviet labor camps, that does a great job. So I think what she's doing is she's drawing parallel to on her book, that what she has gone through, it's so deep and so complicated, so is the Russian literature. So I was really, really that one idea I was really, really connected with. We go into question number 3. Talk about again that one idea that you struggle with. So my struggle, as I mentioned, even the first one, I mentioned intersectionality that I would find in this book, and I did. So the reason I struggled with this idea for someone who is where I'm from, Afghanistan, idea kind of overlap might not hit home as strong as it does for someone from the United States. What I'm trying to say, even though the idea of intersectionality is broad, education, sexuality, ability, age, gender, ethnicity, language, class, it can be seen in a different situation, in specific ways, for genders and race, and for someone like me. For example, seeing I've always imaged every single hero to be white. Very simple as that. Every single time I've seen a movie, the hero has been white rather than anybody else. And you'll see it later on in question number 4 too. Where once I read this book, that idea was kind of hard for me to understand and to connect it with. So it's also the way you look at intersectionality. Let me give you an example. You guys seen pirates with patches? Pirates, when they're trying to steal another ship, what they're trying to do is, they get the patch, they fire their gun, they have to reload it, so they go under the carriage or the ship, and what they do is they put sorry about the music out there if you can hear it. But anyhow, so they load their guns. So they change the patch under what is dark, and then they load the gun and they change the patch and they come back up so they can see the light. So what I'm trying to say is intersectionality is where you are on that ship. Are you in the dark, or are you in the light? In which eye do you want to look at it? That's the one idea that I struggle with. And that's again due to my background. I'm 44 years old, but I haven't lived here all my life. So I hope I clarify that. Question number 4. In what way did you think? In what way did your thinking shift after reading this book? Be specific. So that was another one. I hope you like the Tom Cruise picture. American history and setting of American history in this book uses a lot of reference of American culture, American history, American social problems. I can't get specific in all those because we only have 10 minutes in YouTube. Unique to this country, in Afghanistan, or an Afghan man might have trouble because he doesn't know about he's not situationally aware of the history of America unless he studies it, and unless he lives it. Studying, one thing is, let me give you an example of, if you guys want to go back and travel to World War II, the POWs, prisoners of wars of Germans or Russians. A lot of Russians were also imprisoned. I'm piggybacking back to the Gulag of Archipelago, that book, that the atrocities that was committed from Russian communists to other Russians was crazy. So unless you live it, you understand it. Book you read, and then you kind of like, oh, that's the history. Oh, too bad. I'm really sad for all, brown and black people who went through. And then you move on because you really didn't go through that. So to understand that empathy requires a little bit more depth. So your thinking has to, my thinking had to shift. That, imagine that I love my kids if my kids go through this. So that was, it shifted my thinking. The book was so powerful that did drag me, that not everyone is about a white man on a samurai costume trying to save the day. Last but not least, how might your behavior change after reading this book? So the book is, again, I've stated that and overstated that, is extremely powerful book. Written together powerfully. Sorry again, technical difficulties, my apologies. So it's been put powerfully, and it's been written powerfully. And so my thing is conversation and education. The book might make people want to have conversation about social justice, gender, race, with their friends, families, of course, to me, and peers. This could possibly help our social circle to be more aware of a certain thing that our black and brown and minority community goes through. I have 3 daughters, and they're half Mexican and half Afghan, and of course living in America. And some of them, they do have curly hairs. I know I don't have lots of hair, but my girls have curly hairs. So for them to go through the same struggle, they have to have a father with the change behavior. So this book, in a way, changed my behavior. That how do I behave around them once they're young now, but as they grow older, or people in my social circle that are brown and black or on minority. How do I change? How do I change my behavior? I have to educate myself every day about this more and more. Of course, these 3 books are not enough. I have them lined up. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. So these books are not enough for us to be educated. You have to interact with communities. You have to go through knowing them every day to see what they go through, and be aware and have a dialogue. I think having a conversation is so important. That opens so many doors. And going back to recap it, to answer that question, my behavior is more conversation and more learning. Have a great Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year. I'll end my presentation here. I hope that you learned something from this class. I did. I think our professor was amazing and reachable, even via text. Who can text their professor nowadays? But I was able to, and I had the privilege to do that. It was an honor to have this class with you guys. I hope you enjoy my boring presentation and answering those questions. I didn't want to edit anything because I want you to have it in a raw form, because there's so many fakeness out there, so I wanted to keep it as real as possible. I have the PowerPoint. Anybody who wants to have a copy of it, and I'll post all the questions. Again, wish every single one of you best of luck, and have a blessed day.